All right, so we're coming back in for part 2 of the conversation that Larry and Nico had less than a week ago at Mining Disrupt, where Larry accurately predicted the market turned down, literally 10, 20%. He said, hey, we could have a 20 to 30% correction, and Bitcoin was going to go down with it. And I didn't think, honestly, that Bitcoin would only go down from 87 to 82 and then remain flat. Like, that was incredible yesterday.
And then come back,
and
right?
Act like the market getting slaughtered.
Yesterday was really fantastic. I mean, this is probably the first clear example of Bitcoin uncoupling from the market, right? I mean, everyone said, oh, it's a risk on X, it's just triple Qs. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
NASDAQ was down 7%, QQQ was down just as big, just like incredible market moves, like way out on the curve of normal distribution of returns.
And then another thing I think we should point out, in case people haven't had the time to listen to it, was that Treasury Secretary Bessent had an interview with Tucker Carlson a couple days ago, and he said, Bitcoin is emerging as digital gold, a store of value, right? This is the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Can anyone imagine Janet Yellen saying something like that?
No.
It's stunning, right? And he's a gold bug. So, but he's recognizing that Bitcoin's emerging, right? And he's right.
Yeah. It's pretty clear that this administration has a goal and a plan, and they're sticking to it.
Yeah.
And he talked a little bit about, one of the things he had in his 3-3-3 plan was, hey, we're going to be able to, sell more bonds to foreign nations if we show that we can get our act together. Like, we can get our spending in control, we can get our house in order. I mean, talk a little bit about where you think the market maybe is mispriced right now in terms of all the impact that Doge and the cuts and that is going to have. Like, that's not being priced in right now.
Some people may not want to hear this, but because I'm very, very supportive of everything they're doing. I mean, Doge is a great thing. Sadly, I think doing the tariffs and putting America first, I think is a great thing. But I think even Bessent and Trump aren't fully aware of, as a market watcher, what I perceive to be a process that's going to be painful and we're not done with yet. You can't solve the problems. I mean, we built these problems up over 50 years, Dante, right? I mean, we can't solve them in a weekend. We can't solve them in a week, a month, a year, maybe even one presidential term. I mean, I hope we can get things well established in the right direction by the end of this term. But I guess the point is, this market reminds me a little bit of '87, where you had a very bad fall into the weekend. And I think there's a decent chance on Monday and Tuesday, if the Fed doesn't come out and say something dovish, that we're going to crash, early next week. We may not. It's hard to say. I mean, maybe the selling is done, but the point is that Trump clearly did something extremely disruptive with these tariffs. The market reacted in a way that said, you know what, the world is going to look different, and these stocks are overvalued. We need to take them down substantially, and that process may not be done. And I want to just caution all Bitcoiners to understand that just because we had one day of non-correlation, that does not mean that, in a full-out market collapse, let's just hypothetically say that the market goes down another 10, 15, 20% next week. Not saying it will, but it could. And I think in that case, that would make it look very much like March of 2020 or September of 2008, where you get to a correlation of 1. And what that means is that everything will go down. People will sell. There'll be somebody who's leveraged that owns Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will be the easiest thing to sell, so they'll sell it.
Oh man, I love that correlation of 1 analogy that you keep on using. I think it's a good picture. It's like, if you ever been in the pool with someone who struggles to swim, and they're just grabbing for anything, and if you're close, like, you're going down with them until you grab onto the life raft, right? Until you grab onto that next thing.
And by the way, Bitcoin and gold will emerge as the life rafts because they're the thing that can't be debased. And if what I'm talking about occurs, as my book laid out so clearly, and as everyone listening to this knows, the Fed will have to respond with massive monetary stimulus. They'll have to go quicker, harder, bigger than they did last time. And so that will be the big print. I mean, we've had 2 big prints, 08 and 2020, but this one will be even bigger. And when that, there's nothing that fuels the growth in the underlying base money that's sound, which is Bitcoin, and the older base money, which is close to being as sound, which is gold, as monetary debasement. And we're talking massive monetary debasement. If, and it's only an if, and I'd say it's maybe 50-50, the market goes down the way I'm describing.
Yeah. I mean, take us back a little bit to December or October of '87. What do they call that? Black Monday?
I think it's Black Monday or Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, I was in the markets then. I was fairly young. I entered the world in '83, so I was only 4 years into my career. But I was managing a fund or money, and I had my own personal money. And you could tell the markets were very overbought and very very vulnerable, and they started doing some things with the dollar. The Treasury Secretary made some comments about the dollar, and that's what triggered that whole meltdown. And at the same time, that something had evolved at that time, something called portfolio insurance. I don't know if people have heard of this, but what it was really just a giant stop loss on the market. And so the whole notion that they were selling equity investors is we will sell you insurance below the market, and we will automatically stop your loss if the market goes down. So you participate in the upside, and if there's downside, you'll get capped out where you won't lose very much. And the assumption behind that whole model was that there would never be a discontinuous market. So that, in other words, everyone would get to sell 4% down, right? But what happened is the market jumped over the 4%. And then all the sell orders got triggered, and 4% became 22%, right? And so, we don't have that exact same setup today, but there are a lot of derivatives today. And, I'm guessing there's some people who are reading the newspapers this weekend, the average investor, they're looking at their retirement account, they're calling their financial advisor, they're saying, hey, we kind of took a hit last week, what should I do? And, if a quorum of them comes in on Monday and says sell, it could look similar.
Yeah,
it could.
Our first sponsor is Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Since 2018, they've lent out over $9 billion worth of loans to 40,000 customers in countries all over the world. And these loans are fulfilled in less than 24 hours. They've never lost a single cent or sat of customer money because they're the first digital lending company to do a proof of reserves. It's pretty simple. If you want a $5,000 loan, you have to post $10,000 worth of Bitcoin collateral. And it's super easy. You can be approved for this in less than 24 hours. Go to learn.ledin.io/borrow to get started on your Bitcoin lending journey today. That's learn.ledin.io/borrow. If you want to take the next step in your Bitcoin journey by not just relying on exchanges and third parties and Trust Me Bro, which is our current financial system, and you want to take self-sovereignty, you want to take full control of your financial future, then I suggest that you schedule a free 30-minute consultation with the team at The Bitcoin Way. They'll help you to remove your keys from third-party exchanges privately, confidently, and securely. A member of their team will help you to walk through how to do this step by step, hand-holding you the entire way. Schedule a free consultation with their team at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. That's thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. Protect your generational wealth the right way.
Man, I think the thing that was super interesting is, that so much of the markets are manipulated through bots and algorithms and everything else. It was sort of like the algorithms were programmed to have a reaction from Donald Trump and or Bessent that was going to be kind of, you're not going to do what you say you're going to do. Because what's crazy about this whole thing is they forecasted this tariff day on April 2nd back in February. Everybody knew the date it was coming. And it's crazy. When it happened and they did what they said they were going to do, the market sells off. And I think it's like, was the algorithm tuned to say, yeah, politicians say this, but then they do the opposite? It was so fascinating to see.
I found that exact same thing fascinating. I think two things. I think one, it was a bullish mindset. Just we've had so much, the markets only go up, and everyone knows that doing what they're talking about would be very bad for the markets, so they won't do it. They can't do it. He's just bluffing. This is just the art of the deal with Trump. And I always kind of took the other side of that. I thought to myself, no, if he wants to, the system is broken, and the system needs to be fixed. And if you want to fix it, you might have to break some glass to do it. And my sense was, he's a gutsy guy, and he's not afraid to break glass. Look at how he's behaved politically. He's taken many stances that I know most people didn't think he could beat Hillary, and he did. And so, kudos to him for sticking by his guns. And even today, and this is probably why if the market doesn't crash next week, I think there'll be a lot of talk that, well, he's still going to back off, that these tariffs aren't real. And there's some interesting things in there. I don't want to go into it in great detail, but the whole way they calculated the tariffs and they messaged it.
With the boards and
with the boards and the tariffs are equal to the trade deficit that they've been running, and that's what they've been charging us. So we're going to charge half of that to them. There's some real political salesmanship, I should say, involved in that. And so be it. That's the way the game is played, right?
Dude, there's some genius to that, and I think one of the things I appreciate most about the big print is that it's easy to comprehend, right? Even in the title, the book, the cover, it's easy to comprehend and it's easy for normies. And I think when you think about like Donald Trump in their administration or even his campaigns, I'm trying to think back to what did Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton actually run on, right? What were their slogans, right? And I don't remember. I remember Obama ran on hope in 2008, and you remember those slogans, right? But make America great again. Make America healthy again. ERS, right? It's pretty easy to catch on.
Simple, and the message is so on point. I mean, everyone should take the time to listen to Scott Bessent's 1 hour long interview with Tucker, because there's a lot of great signal in that interview. And I love the part where he just talks about how the bottom half of this country is just taking it on the chin. And it's just been incredibly unfair. And it's because the monetary system has been rigged against them. And if anyone wants to understand that rigging, obviously a plug for my book, buy my book. I've tried to write it in as clear and simple a language as possible. The goal of that book is to get the average person, the average citizen, to read it and go, oh my God, I understand. Now I understand why I'm getting eaten alive by inflation. Now I understand why I can't get ahead. Now I understand why the system's broken. Oh, and that's the bad news. The good news is, oh, look at this hopeful emerging solution. Look at this group of people that are supporting that solution. Look at this technology that can make things better. If we can, move towards sound money, all of our lives are going to get better. The world's going to be fairer. We're going to have less wars. I mean, there are incredible benefits above and beyond just number go up. So, I really, 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 please, if you can, support the book. Give it away to friends. Tell people about it. We got to get this thing to go viral. I mean, we got to, Morgan Housel sold 7 million books on something called The Psychology of Money. It's a good book. It's a good personal interest book. But if he can sell 7 million copies, we got 330 million people in this country. They're all hurting. We ought to be able to sell, a fair number of books, and that's the goal.
So what do you think now that we're at the beginnings of what I think the cycle you predicted, the 10, 20, 30%, correction coming in the markets, what do you see the rest of the year looking like in terms of Bitcoin, in terms of the market in general?
Yeah, so I've always said, don't trust me for market predictions, because nobody ever gets them right. I can't get them right. Anyone who tells you they can is lying. But a general trend I feel comfortable with. I think that the stock market has seen its peak. I feel extremely comfortable with that. I think that based on all of the free money that boosted the stock market and created the everything bubble, that there's a very high probability that at the end of this calendar year, the stock market is substantially lower than it is now. The stock market has been the economy. The top 10% account for 50% of the spending. The top 10% own 84% of the stocks. When you take 20 or 30% off the top 10%'s retirement portfolio, guess what? They stop spending money. Yeah. They don't take trips, they don't use hotels, they don't use airplanes, they don't buy cars. They just cut back because they don't have as much money to spend. And so that leads to a recession, which then becomes reflexive because, we buy less cars, then the factory worker who makes cars gets laid off. And so I think we're headed into a downturn. It's long overdue. It's going to be painful. I'm not happy about that, but it is what it is. And then if we look at historically, and again, the book lays this out, the Federal Reserve response to this is, at some point they've been fighting inflation. They have not solved it, but they're going to declare victory, even they don't really have it. And they're going to say, gosh, unemployment's really, the Somme rule has been violated. Unemployment's going up quickly. We need to address stimulus and get things going. And Trump is going to get his wish. They're going to cut rates, and they're going to start slowly. When that's not enough, they're going to get more aggressive. When that's not enough, they're going to do QE. QE is printing money, and there's nothing that likes printing money more than Bitcoin. Right? I mean, they do that. And so I think we're still in a 4-year cycle. And I think 140 is the next stop.
Oh, I 100% agree. I just said that a little bit earlier. It's right around that same price target and number. And I think people underestimate the Fed's stated mandate is price stability and employment. Their third mandate that they don't talk about is that our job as the federal bank and central bank is to serve the other banks, the Wall Street banks that are member institutions of the Fed and this cabal. And so that's the third unstated mandate that they run on. And so when Jamie Dimon loses money, when equity portfolios are too deflationary, we have to reinflate. When your tire goes flat, you don't drive around on a flat tire. You put more air into it. And that's what liquidity does into the markets. So their primary thing is to reinflate.
That's an excellent point, Dante. I mean, the third mandate has always been healthy and continuously operating financial markets. And we know that when that is threatened, like in the March 2020 example, the 10-year went no bid. And they can't have that. In 2008, the banking system almost melted down and the ATMs weren't going to work. They couldn't have that. And so if we get to that point, I'm not sure we will get how close we'll get to that, but we could. If we get to that point, we know one thing's for certain. They will do what Neil Kashkari says. There's an infinite amount of cash in the Federal Reserve, because they'll just run the printer.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Who is one character or one person that you're really following? I know you mentioned this Scott Bessent interview. I like wholeheartedly agree. I think it is some of the most fantastic content on how the world actually works. Because if you think about this guy, he had his fun. You know, he was one of the Soros, Druckenmiller kind of students and disciples. He knows the world. He knows the people personally. He knows exactly how things work in the front of the house and in the back of the house. And he's giving us a financial masterclass in order to forecast what we should do next. And I don't know if people are fully appreciating and listening to all that he's saying.
I think that's completely right. I mean, if you think back, they actually telegraphed this move.
Yeah.
And people didn't listen to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, my guess is that going forward, people are going to listen much, much more carefully to what these guys are saying. Now, having said that, they're not beyond. I mean, I think there are two areas where I think they fall a little bit short. I think they're being overly optimistic on how quickly they can solve this. But hey, it's politics. You got to be optimistic, right?
Yeah.
And I also think that they sometimes mix up their message on the dollar, and they say they want a strong dollar policy. But a strong dollar policy really is not compatible with getting rid of Bretton Woods and reshoring all our industry. And there's no question that in inflationary terms and in foreign currency terms, they have to weaken the dollar.
They have to.
They've got to.
That's the untold story that's happening right now. Is the dollar's at 101 from 108 or 109, which it was before. And that's actually helping partners globally to be able to invest more money in currency back into the United States stock market. So I think they're priming for what should be a pretty, strong several months of growth. And from an average normal person, the gap between the 10-year, right, the 10 years at 3.9 and your mortgage rate is about 2.5 points right now. And what happens when creditors have more faith in the government? Well, then we know if the government's not going to go default, right, that 3.9 to 6.5 goes from 3.9 to 6 to 5.5. And that allows normal everyday people to afford a mortgage, to afford a home.
Bessent used the word, they're a little bit betwixt and between. I mean, they're trying, they've got, Doge and the deregulation policies are trying to make everything more efficient, but that takes time. And in turn, the on the other side of the monetary side, they're trying to get conditions looser. And some have arguably said they wanted to croak the stock market to help the bond market, and maybe that's true. I mean, I think there's a grain of truth in that. And Bessent himself pointed out that the stocks are owned. I mean, a lot of the people who voted for Trump don't own stocks.
Yeah.
The bottom half of the country, they don't own stocks.
Yeah. So
they're not looking at their 401ks. They don't have them.
Yeah.
They're like, and to them, it's like, well, some rich guys lost some money. Too bad. I hope you don't bail them out again like you did in 08.
So, Larry, you talk a little bit about in your book about one of the most, impactful stories about, your journey here is that, one guy read it who was a trucker and said he listened to all of your content and got him into Bitcoin. I mean, tell me a little bit about why you enjoy this conference specifically and what about it here, gives you hope.
I love Gary. He's been doing these for a long time. He does a great job with them, and I knew I'd see a lot of great people at this conference. So obviously I'm selling books and trying to promote the message, really trying to spread the message. So that's why I'm here. It's just a lot of Texan people are Bitcoiners. The state's kind of got the ethos of Bitcoin, right? Don't mess with Texas, and so it's just a fun thing. I mean, I saw a bunch of old friends here, and so on and so forth. So the other thing about this conference is human scale. I mean, what do we got here? Maybe 400 or 500 people at the most. Yeah. I mean, as everybody knows, anyone who went to Nashville last year, I went to Nashville trying to see people. I didn't run into anybody. It was so mobbed. Yeah. The big conference has become just that. It's become a really big conference. So these medium scale conferences they have a fun all their own. I mean, I've gotten to talk to a ton of people. People get to talk to me. In Las Vegas this year, I'm sure that's going to be a zoo.
Yeah.
So
it'll be a lot.
The small ones are good.
It'll be a lot, but that's what maybe gets the outside person to think a little bit more about Bitcoin. And
well, that's right. I mean, we've got to spread this message, folks. That's really what it is. I mean, everyone wonders what they can do. What you can do, if you're listening to this, is you can try and talk to your friends. This is a good idea. We know it's a good idea. There's a lot of evidence it's a good idea. Country's broken. So what do? You lobby your friends to try and understand why it's broken and how this is a good idea. That's really, that's my message. Right?
Man.
This last few weeks has been a blast, as right now I'm down at the BitBlockBoom conference in Austin, Texas. I've been able to meet some of my fans and people who support this show from all across the world. And I'm super excited to do the same thing at the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world at Las Vegas at the Venetian Hotel from May 27th through May 29th, the Bitcoin Magazine Bitcoin Conference. It's going to be a party like you've never seen. And the cool thing is, we're hooking you guys up. Use the promo code SIMPLY for 10% off. Go to b.tcconference/2025 and use the promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your ticket. We can't wait to see you down there.
Larry, I always enjoy getting to chat with you, man.
Likewise, Dante. Next time we'll have to do some lifting, and we didn't have time on this trip.
I know.
This guy is really strong.
My hip is out of commission right now, so we'll see. We'll see about next time.
Yeah. Thanks, Dante.
All right.